First up, he's the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee from California's 28th, our own Congressman Adam Schiff. How are you?
Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we love having you on. You get a standing ovation. Thank you. All right, so, and not only are you a great guest and the audience loves you, a liberal icon now, but I know you bear news because this just happened today, probably while you were in the air flying out here from Washington. Trump is not going to release the other part of the dueling memos, right?
Well, that's right. You see, last week, over the objections of the FBI and the Department of Justice, who said, don't release this, it's extraordinarily reckless, it's misleading, it omits material facts, he said, I don't care, it's going out.
That's the Nunes memo.
That was the Nunes memo. This week, though, the White House apparently has a newfound admiration for the FBI. We wouldn't want to release anything that the FBI might be concerned about.
The way they turn on a dime.
Well, so what they're doing is they're sending the memo back to the committee, the same committee whose majority crafted the false memo to begin with, because they know the chairman has the president's back. That's the White House strategy. So we're going to sit down with the FBI and the Department of Justice. We did the responsible thing. We sent them our memo well before we brought it up for a vote in the committee. We want to hear any concerns they have about sources and methods. The problem is this, and this is why we urge Republicans not to go down this road. They wrote this deliberately misleading memo that omitted all the important information the reader needed to know. And when we supplied the material facts, it's like, oh, no, we can't share the facts, because that would be disclosing too much information.
How do you win on the facts in an era where the facts don't matter to people anymore? Or where you can, I said this a couple weeks ago, and Republicans got mad at me. I said, you know, they're sheep, and you can drive them from to a different meadow so easily. And I meant by that, it was only about a year ago, they loved the FBI and the Justice Department. That was the pillar of being a Republican, law enforcement. And now, if you look at the polling, they think they're in league with the liberals somehow, and that this is a conspiracy against Trump. How do you fight that?
Well, it is enormously challenging, and I think of all of the, of all of the difficulties that we face in terms of how we've gotten to where we are politically, you have obviously serious issues of campaign finance reform, you've got redistricting. But among the most difficult to deal with is the fact that people now simply get their information from different sources. Had Fox News existed and been essentially the state-run TV during the Nixon era, there might not have been an impeachment of Richard Nixon. But there is this whole echo chamber that supports whatever the president says. What I find so astounding about the last year is how much this deeply flawed president could remake an entire political party in his own image. But that's what's happened. So quickly. That is so quickly. And probably the most distressing thing about that for me is not what a poor President Trump turned out to be, which we could easily foresee, but rather, well, okay, we underestimated even that, but still. The real shock is how many people in Congress and in the party would be complicit in that. There are only a few people who have been willing to speak out, Jeff Flake among them. I would have thought more of my colleagues. I would have expected more. I would have expected people to defend our institutions, to defend the First Amendment, but no. And what we are seeing is the problem when you have someone who lacks character in the Oval Office. It infects the whole of government. It's infected our committee. That's what produced this flawed memo to begin with. This was put out with a rule we have never before used, and for good reason. When you selectively declassify intelligence, when you misuse classified intelligence like this, the agencies stop sharing with the oversight committees, and sources of information stop sharing with the intelligence community because they can't trust the committee to responsibly handle information. That makes us less safe. This damage will be, unfortunately, long-lasting. But we need to get back to the mission of our committee, and that is investigating what Russia did, what the Trump campaign did, and what they may have done in combination. That's what we need to focus on.
But I don't feel a urgency. I don't feel an urgency out there, just talking and walking among people about Russia. I mean, obviously there are some people who are in the Fox News bubble and they just don't think it's real. But like DACA, I feel an urgency about. Now, I think we agree on both those issues. I think the Dreamers should get their due, but it looks like that's something that, I understand it's more of a human issue or easier to see, but if you're going to shut down the government, it seems like this is the kind of thing I would shut down the government for. The fact that Russia is meddling in our election and the commander-in-chief is not fighting a battle that he should be fighting for America. His number one duty, the number one thing we're here for, the number reason we have government is for protection.
Well, look, I think most Americans are just trying to get by in their daily lives. They're trying to provide for their family. They're trying to make sure they can get medical care for their kid. They're trying to make sure if they're a dreamer that they don't get deported to some country they've never really seen before. But we do need to be mindful of the much bigger challenge facing the country right now. And that is there is a systematic undermining of our system of checks and balances. Brick by brick, the walls are being taken down. The wall between the White House and the Justice Department, the way we are demeaning the press, and as you say, we're suggesting that there is no such thing as objective fact anymore. The way the administration says that a judge that rules against us is illegitimate. These are ways in which they're doing enormous damage to our system of government.
And now tanks in the streets. You know, I mean, I laugh too. I mean, it's a funny premise, comedian, we like a premise like that, ha ha ha. But I don't. It's not really funny. The idea, because you should not get used to the look of tanks in the streets. We don't have that look in America. And when I've seen that look anywhere else in the world, it's never been good. And to me, this is like, yeah, let's get them used to that. Tanks in the streets.
Yeah. Well, look, I would rather spend our money on making sure that we are taking care of our veterans who are still having a hard time getting medical care they need at the VA, and that our troops are supplied the way they should be, rather than doing something to gratify the ego of the occupant at 600 Pennsylvania.
Well, I hope that's all it is. I'm not sure. But I know the occupant there, you should be quite honored. You have now gotten a nickname from him. You are Little Schiff?
Yeah. Well, you know,
is that what he called? I mean, that's been used, but...
I'm kind of disappointed because last year I was sleazy Adam Schiff. Now I'm little Adam Schiff.
Oh, yes.
Which is actually, I think, an improvement. So does that mean he likes me more now? It's also confusing. But I have to tell you, you'll appreciate this, Bill. One of my colleagues had a suggestion for how I ought to respond on Twitter to the president's attack, which I didn't take because it was much more Bill Maher than Adam Schiff.
Yeah.
But I would share it with you anyway. He said, you should write back, "Dear Mr. President, when they go low, we go high, go screw yourself."
Ah.
But I didn't think I could pull that off.
No.
That was just not me. So
when they go low, we get high. That's different.
That is a true Bill Maher answer.
Legal here now. Yeah, buzz me on that. But no, you actually, I like this, that you and a number of your colleagues are now sort of like getting in the game, his game. You mocked him beautifully. You said something recently in one of your tweets about the executive time in the morning that he takes. Is what I was just talking about. He's doing his hair for 5 hours.
You know, this is truly a presidency in which you could say that the country would be much safer in the morning and all day if the president was watching cartoons.
Well, the president is watching cartoons. That's how bad it is. But you're doing a yeoman's job out there, and I appreciate it, and we all do. Please keep it up. All right, Adam Schiff, everybody.